Former Secretary of Defense Mark Esper is suing the Pentagon over redactions in his memoir. The book describes his time as Secretary of the Army and Secretary of Defense under former President Trump. Mr. Trump fired Esper via Twitter days after he lost the 2020 election. The lawsuit claims 60 pages of the memoir contain redactions with no written justification. It says, quote, "Significant text is being improperly withheld from publication in Secretary Esper's manuscript under the guise of classification. The withheld text is crucial to telling important stories discussed in the manuscript." For more on this, I want to bring in CBS News national security correspondent David Martin. Hi, David. So remind us of former Defense Secretary Esper's relationship with former President Trump.
Well, at the start of the Trump administration, he was the Secretary of the Army, which put him in charge of the Army Corps of Engineers, which was the government agency responsible for building the border wall. And as Secretary of the Army, Esper was all for the border wall and was all for giving the president all the support that the Army Corps of Engineers could give him on building the border wall. And I think that was one reason why Trump named him as Secretary of Defense after James Mattis had quit and after the acting Secretary of Defense, Patrick Shanahan, had been forced to step down. So very quickly after Esper became Secretary of Defense, the glow seemed to go off for both men, and Esper began to see his role as simply mitigating the consequences of some of President Trump's policy pronouncements, such as the sudden withdrawal from Syria, his attempt to suddenly withdraw from Afghanistan, pulling troops out of Germany to settle a personal feud he was having with Angela Merkel. And then things really came to a head with the June 2020 Black Lives Matter protest here in Washington and around the country. Esper was involved in that famous walk across Lafayette Square and posed with the president while he was holding that Bible in that famous and very controversial photo op in front of St. John's Church. And then he publicly broke with Trump by walking into the Pentagon briefing room one morning and saying he did not support the use of active duty troops to control the protests that were going on all across America. And from that point on, it was just a matter of time before President Trump fired him. Certainly he was going to fire him after the election. The only question was whether Esper would make it to the election. He did, but just barely.
Yeah, I remember clearly the moment he said he regretted that photo opportunity that you just described. David, what does the review process normally entail for former executive branch employees wanting to publish a book?
Well, it entails a lot of frustration, usually. You have to submit your manuscript, and this goes for everybody from the Secretary of Defense down to a Navy SEAL who wants to write about the Bin Laden raid. You have to submit your manuscript to a review board, and the review board then goes over it and removes all classified information. And of course, the review board takes a very conservative approach on what's classified, and that drives authors crazy because they're trying to tell stories and have parts of it just taken out for classification reasons. Esper, in his lawsuit, is claiming that his manuscript was being censored not because it contained classified information, but because it was just too candid about all the blow-ups that occurred between the Secretary of Defense and the Commander-in-Chief, President Trump, during the second half of the Trump administration. And he says in his lawsuit that they did not cite any classified information that was in the manuscript, but they said he had to take out quotes that he directly attributed to President Trump. And you can imagine, we know there were some real shouting matches in the Oval Office. And so if he's quoting President Trump directly, those are going to be pretty juicy quotes. And if he gives his opinions about President Trump, those are probably going to be pretty stringent opinions.
Right. So, David, the former Defense Secretary is being represented by whistleblower attorney Mark Zaid, who made a point of differentiating Esper's book from former National Security Advisor John Bolton's book. What is the exact distinction he's making?
Well, Esper is so far playing by the rules. I mean, he submitted his manuscript for review and is now complaining about the amount of material that they took out and the time they took to review it. But he hasn't published anything. Bolton submitted his manuscript. A lot of his material was excised. He reached a compromise, but he never got a final authorization that this book is cleared to be published. It contains no classified information. He went ahead and published anyway, and he took the risk of exposing himself to either civil or criminal prosecution. The Trump administration, while it was still in office, went after him in court, but that didn't last long after President Biden took office, because the Justice Department dropped the suit. But that is much more of a defiant attitude than Esper is taking. Esper right now is just in the complaining phase.
Right. All right. Well, we will see how this resolves itself. David Martin at the Pentagon, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure thing.